Hi, my name is SK, and this is Thought Infrastructure, right here on Climate TV. Today I just want to be able to speak about a few things that I've been thinking about, thoughts that I've been wondering how best would I be able to express and exhibit them, especially right now when we are looking at a society that is quite anxious on the uncertain nature of everything now that we are looking at a pandemic. So today's topic is imposter economics. Economics is borrowed from both imposter and economics. Imposter syndrome is a syndrome that humans face that is very interesting. Humans get to a place where despite their accolades, despite their achievement, despite their progression in life, in learning and things like that, humans get themselves to a place where they still feel inadequate, strangely. This syndrome affects people in very different ways. This syndrome affects professionals as well, especially professionals. So a story is told of a survey that was done in the 70s of 150 women that went to this interview. And when they did the interview, the interesting thing is that they all qualified, but they needed just to be able to speak to them and know how it is that they feel, what they would do if they would get the job. The most amazing thing, even though there was evidence of their prowess at work, of their different milestones that they had covered in life through their life as well as professionals, the interesting thing is from the 150, only 5 were confident enough to take the job. Interesting. Imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is where people doubt themselves and feel as though they are imposters in a position. They feel as though they don't deserve to have positions. People step away from promotions purely because there is something inside of them that is telling them that they are not good enough, even though it's not necessarily true. People have refused packages. People have refused being transferred to different higher level of practice purely because something inside of them is telling them that they are not good enough. And people normally would speak about, I was just lucky. People would speak about, it's just something that happened. Yeah, it's genetics. And today I just want to be able to decode imposter economics, because at such a time of a crisis, people are getting themselves at a place where they need to reinvent themselves. They have skills and abilities to get into different spaces, be productive, and therefore adapt into a new way of living, because we are in a new future. But yet, imposter syndrome is highest at crisis. I want to run through the characters or the characteristics of imposter syndrome. Number 1, anxiety. Anxiety is an effect. They always say about cause and effect. Anxiety is an effect, but it's not a cause. Sometimes we see the effect, but we try to cure the effect. But anxiety is basically not a cause. Number 1, when we see anxiety, we should ask ourselves, could this be caused by an imposter syndrome? Number 2, procrastination. You know you can do it, you know you have what it takes to do it, but you just don't get to do it. For some reason, you're dragging your feet. That's an interesting one. Number 3, self-doubt. Self-doubt is even though you have proof that you're the guy for the job, you still doubt it. And sometimes people find themselves at a place where they want someone to pat their back. They want someone to gear them up. You find yourself at a place where you almost want people to validate you, yet you're the person for the job. The other one is fear of failure. Fear of failure is a big one. Fear of failure is where people just get frozen because they dread failing. Failing, not necessarily because failing is a bad thing, but because failing is embarrassing. Failing is humiliating from their point of view. But before we speak of the cure, I want to speak about the imposter cycle. When you see these things happening, you have to realize that these things don't just happen once, but they get you into a cycle. And every time you get into a cycle, you're trapped. When you're trapped in a cycle, that's what they call a curse. A curse is a cycle that you're in, even though you don't want to be, yet you can't get yourself out of. And therefore, I want to speak about the imposter cycle. This is exactly how an imposter cycle looks like. Number 1, you're anxious. Number 2, you avoid compliment. So you're anxious and you avoid compliment. People have a way of dreading compliment. Sometimes when you compliment people and tell them, hey, you look nice, people wonder, okay, what do you want? And that is something that we have all experienced. People would rather be criticized than be complimented, even though it's an odd thing, because compliments are better than criticism. Yet, we feel uncomfortable when people tell you, you look nice today. I like your shoes, I like your dress, I like your suit, I like your jacket, and people feel very uncomfortable because we've never been taught to receive compliment. We actually sometimes give it without really thinking of how people are receiving it. The truth is, most people are very uncomfortable on receiving this. The second thing that people do is set impossible goals and seek for perfection. Set impossible goals and seek for perfection. Perfection is not a strength. Perfection is a weakness because it's unattainable. Perfection is like the horizon that keeps moving as you run towards it. It's impossible to attain it. But excellence and perfection are relatives that complement each other. What we are actually looking for is excellence. Excellence is getting to an acceptable standard, but perfection is getting to a standard that just doesn't exist. And the obsession to perfection is a weakness. Not knowing that you can't attain something, yet you push to it, is a state of insanity. So, they set impossible goals and seek for perfection. Without a doubt, the next thing happens. They fail and find comfort in self-punishment. You fail because you're looking for perfection, which just doesn't exist. Then you punish yourself because you knew all along, intrinsically, that you are fraudulent, that you're not the guy for the job. Because of that particular element, then you find it easy to punish yourself. Isn't it interesting that people are able to forgive everyone else but themselves? Especially when you have an imposter syndrome. You want to be the first one to do justice to you before the justice system does justice to you. So people feel like they're fraudulent. People feel like they're a hoax. People feel, but in true sense, it's just a limiting belief that you build inside of you. We have to talk about the cure. The cure is important and interesting because at the end of the day, unless you rewind your tape and know where this started, then you're stuck in this cycle for a long, long time. We have to rewind the tape and go to our pasts and realize, when did I start doubting myself? When did I stop believing in myself? When did I start thinking that I'm fraudulent as an individual, as a professional, as a person? Because unless you cure that, then you find yourself at this. And every time you're in a crisis, your imposter syndrome comes out and it's at its highest state. So let's talk about the cure. Cue number 1, focus on facts. Yeah. Not on illusions, not on myths, just focus on facts. Let me break down the facts as well into 3. Take stock of things that you're grateful for. Count your blessings, name them one by one. You've heard that song. That song needs to be a reality. When you find yourself at this state, focus on facts. Take stock. These are my strengths, and I am grateful for this strength. Anything you're grateful for appreciates in value. Number 2, focus on your value base, your value system. Values are important. Go back and listen to what your mom was telling you, because she was trying to align you to a value system. And if what you're about to do is aligned to your value system, then you're on point. If it's not aligned to your value system, then dump it. Focus on timeless truths. Timeless truths, these are laws, these are principles. Principles that don't change, principles that will be there forever. Principle that's like seed time, harvest time. Principle that like hard work pays off. Principles like sacrifice pays off. You get? So we have to get ourselves to that place where we have to realize that there's some timeless truths. Do good to others as you want them to do good to you. There's some timeless truths that you have to stand by. If you don't have these philosophies and principles that guide your life, then anything else can guide your life. It is important to have that. Number 2, challenge our limiting beliefs. How do we challenge our limiting beliefs? We challenge our limiting beliefs. These are myths, absolutes that we have in our minds, even though they are not factual. The only way we are able to do this is by exposure. Expose yourself. Explore the world through learning. They say if you can't afford a ticket, at least you can afford a book and you can travel through it. So explore, travel the world through books, travel the world through learning, travel the world through watching things that expand your scope of mind. Because when you expand your scope of mind, you realize that your limiting beliefs are not necessarily true. There's another world beyond your bubble. And that's an important thing. And what bigger than learning to get you into that place? And if you can, and if you can afford, travel. Let your kids travel. Let them see another society. Let them see other people. Let them see people who think different from them. Because then their limiting beliefs that are borrowed from their confines and can be broken, and then they can get to that place of liberty of thought. Number 3, analyze your strengths and analyze your weaknesses. Analyze your strength and analyze your weaknesses. If I had time, I would tell you a story, but I'll paraphrase it. A time came in my life when I was in the music creative industry. So I was doing music as a songwriter, musician, then got into a place where I was a producer, and I felt like I had more, but I couldn't do more. And this was bothering me for a long time, because I felt I had strength I didn't know I have, and I have weaknesses that are barring me from progressing forward. So I called up about 8 people, a lawyer, all different professions, someone in music, someone in different careers. So I had an assortment of 8 people, and I took them somewhere and I gave them a task. Take me through my strength and take me through my weaknesses. That was the biggest risk I had taken at that particular point, because they actually took me through my weaknesses. And that just crushed me. It crushed me, man. Because I came back, they sent me out, and I went outside. Coming back, they had a whole flip chart of my weaknesses. I never knew I had so many weaknesses to fill a flip chart. But they took me through my weaknesses and I died. Then they flipped the flip chart and they took me through a full page of my strengths that I didn't even know. And I'm telling you, that changed my life forever. Same exact thing. Currently I'm doing same exact thing from a corporate point of view, to call different corporate professional, to call corporate financiers and different people and have the same exact experience. Take me through my weaknesses, or take us through our weaknesses as an organization, then take us through our strength. And without a doubt, I can't wait, because I know what it did to me as a person and what it can do to an institution. Number 4, talk about your flaws, scars, and be liberated by being present. There's so much power we give to the secrets of our failures. There's so much power we give to our weaknesses. Sometimes we hide our weaknesses, yet our weaknesses could be our strengths. What if we could get liberated by exhibiting places that we have failed, only so that we may be able to reflectively encourage someone else on the same and live our life differently, because we're coming from a place of being liberated. Don't be a slave to your past failure. I just want to take one example. And this particular example, I just want us to look at it critically. It's not personal, it's just an observation. The observation could be accurate, could be inaccurate. Nonetheless, you can as well jump in and have your own observation on this particular element. I'm looking at the church as an example, the body of Christ, or religious institutions. And religious institutions have been coming from a place of inadequacy. As an observation in this time of crisis. In this time of crisis, you're expecting a very stern voice, strong voice that gives direction and gives hope. But at the same time, you see that the church itself as an institution has been having its own issues, where they are actually at a preservation mode. And the preservation mode now is, how do we stay relevant? How do we not die? How do we make sure that our people remember us when we are post this pandemic? And it's an interesting thing, because the church is actually adequate, but it's behaving as though it's feeling inadequate. And I'm looking at these things and a few facts about the church to show how adequate it is, and therefore the question of why isn't the church doing more to come out as a voice of reason at this particular time. Number 1, the church is the biggest economy, period, consolidated. Number 2, it has the most votes. So just imagine the power of that element. If the church was to come, the church community was to come together, they have the most votes. The church is the biggest consumer market, yet the institution of religion has never really composed themselves to be packaged as a product in an economy. We don't see churches in the FMCG market. We don't see churches in the retail market. We don't see churches, yet they actually are the biggest consolidated consumer market. The church community speaks a common language under the same value system, the same value base. Their moral system is the same. They believe on the same timeless truths. They believe on the same philosophies. They believe on the same way of living. Their lifestyle is aligned, yet they don't touch in terms of economics. Very strange. The question is, if only believers will build their own infrastructure and affect an economy, affect a society, affect the people, could it be that we as a body are suffering from imposter syndrome and therefore imposter economics? So in an economy, we are finding many people who ought to be participants, but yet they are spectators. So the question is, at this particular time where everyone is pulling back to be a spectator, what will you do? Will you be a participant that makes change? Would you overcome imposter syndrome and therefore change the essence of imposter economics so that you take action, so that you may overcome anxiety by being decisive, overcome perfectionism by looking for excellence, overcome self-doubt by basically reassuring yourself through truths and philosophies and laws that run and govern your life based on your moral standing. And as well, you may overcome the fear of failure. Socrates said something: whoever teaches people how to die will teach them how to live. because when you overcome the thought of your fear, then you're liberated and you cannot be stopped. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is SK. What will you do in this time of an imposter economic environment? This is Thought Infrastructure on Clean Money TV, brought to you by Avenue, Going Beyond. Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you.